everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 682, recording today, live from the cloud, because we're trying that again Wednesday, the 1st of September. Yeah, I guess September is a thing. I guess that means autumn. That's a bit scary. I mean, the sun isn't shining. But hey, this is a music technology podcast, not a weather commentary channel. If you want to find out more about this, we stream live on YouTube every week at 4 p.m. UK time on Wednesday. We also stream via Twitch, which some of you will be watching. We're streaming via Facebook Live as well. I think I do as well. So welcome to our chatties. There we've got people in the chat room, the IRC, and also in the YouTubes. And while I still remember, I want to say thank you very much to Synth Addict. Last week, he was very generous with his super chat donation. Thank you very much, sir. Very much appreciated. We missed out. It was a bit hectic because last week I tried the cloud thing and it all went wrong, and I had to suddenly rebuild the show locally in the hardware here. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this. The reason is because we're going to Superbooth. Superbooth is going to be on the 15th of September onwards for 3 days, and I want to be able to produce some kind of live stream show there, so I need to be able to make a virtual version. If you want to find out more about how this is all working, there's the pre-show, which if you're on Patreon, I'll plug it now. You can join Patreon and you get to see the pre-show. We take the ads out and you get the full Sonic Talk experience, but with the extra bits on and the commercial bits out. So if you're interested in that, patreon.com/Sonicstate. Audio version available everywhere, Google, Alexa, all of those things, all of those places where you find your podcasts, and that will be up tomorrow. But let's get on to saying hello to some folks, because we've got some people. We'll start actually with the furthest away. We've got Mr. Rich Hilton, who's there in Connecticut. Rich, fresh back from gigs. How was it? You're back from the UK, which we couldn't hook up, but this is great. How were you euphoric? Was it great?
It was euphoric and great. It was also surreal and bizarre. So it was a lot of things and a lot of mixed feelings, although I was thrilled to do it, and we're doing more of it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was great. The audiences were immense and incredibly receptive and warm and wonderful. And we had a very strict regimen of testing before we came, testing after we arrived. We had to perform self-tests every single day. I've got one around here somewhere. Oh, it's back here.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
So we've been, tested up, every day, and kept pretty much in a bubble amongst our own people, and not really, I certainly wasn't doing any socializing. And apologies to everybody who were so kind to understand why we couldn't do socializing. And I still can't really do socializing because I want to come back in 2 weeks. And being positive and asymptomatic isn't good enough. You have to be negative, so I have to kind of act like it's last year, and which it sort of is actually, and not get this thing, so that we can keep playing.
Oops, Bob.
I love it. I love playing music. I love seeing happy faces. I love the whole experiences of playing with my bandmates and being with them. We have so much fun together. So it was great and bizarre at the same time.
Well, congratulations to you, man, because I know that it's been a long time. I know Gaz had some gigs as well, and there were some pictures of him, and he just looked like he was loving life, and I'm sure it was much the same for you. But lovely to have you, and I hope your return trip is also equally as fun. You're welcome. We also have Mr. Dominic Hawken, who's over there. Mr. Wiggly, how are you, Dom?
I'm good. I don't get out much anyway, but no gigs. But it was brilliant to see Gaz's face. Just talking to Rich before the show, I seem to have received lots of Facebook style messages from friends who don't know each other that all were at one of his gigs, so obviously everyone was just so keen to get out and support music and just get out there and have some fun, which is absolutely brilliant. So I really, really hope all of that stuff can continue, and it doesn't, and it just continues on this upward spiral, because it's been so tough for us. We all know how tough it's been, but it's lovely to see people out playing again and out enjoying festivals as well, which is just fab. I've just been programming plugins, which is for me equally satisfying.
I was going to plug your
less sociable.
plugins, Mr. Wrigley.co.uk. I've got the incinerator. That does rather imply that there might be something more on the cards. I don't know whether that's the case or not.
It is very, very, very close. So maybe it just needs to be a little bit closer to announce it, I think. But it's very, very close. It's making noise and the knobs are wiggling as Mr. Wiggly stuff does. It's all good. So finally, it always takes so much longer than I expect. But that's just the case with coding, I guess. The deadlines are kind of stretchy at best.
Yeah, well, I do hope. Well, I mean, it's plenty of time, no rush.
Exactly.
At least you haven't got to worry about component shortages or anything, have you? So
no. Oh gosh, I know a few manufacturers who are having some trouble with that as well. It's just crazy. But yeah, and at least the show's on, so hopefully all your video work will be be worthwhile by the time you get out there. Is it all for real and for definite and everything booked now? So it's definitely.
Well, we are booked. This is Super Booth. For those of you who perhaps are still thinking about going, it's still going ahead. I've had reports back from the people over at Super Booth. There's tickets available. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be hard to get in. I mean, you just need a negative test, I believe, as far as I understand. But you should check superbooth.com for the site. But yeah, we're going with the full team. We're going proper, full on, because we want to kind of say a number of things. It's like it's still going. We want to support the industry. We want to do our thing. We just want to also. It's nice to be able to get away with the team because we haven't seen them for such a long time. So all of that, we're doing all of those things, and we'll try and bring as much content as possible. I know that there's going to be some exciting stuff which I obviously can't talk about. But yeah, from the 15th of September, superbooth.com or Sonicstate channel, there will be forthcoming video, and we're all ready to go. Okay. I must apologise, Rich. I think I actually was adjusting your delay, not your voice, not your level of your voice. So you ended up being really out of sync, and I was going, "Oh no, I've broken it." I'm starting to have that slight panic that what I had done was having an issue with my virtual instance. But now, if you speak, I think you'll be in time.
Okay.
Yay! Thank goodness. For that. Thank goodness for that. I'm very pleased.
And I wanted to say that I use the Mr. Wiggly incinerator every day.
Oh.
It's a staple on my lead sounds from the Rolly. It's a staple there, and I love it. It sounds great.
Rich, thank you so much. No, thank you. It's so kind of you to say that. That's just, really, really, really touching. It's so good. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Makes you feel
excellent. Well, we're all a bit loved up here, which is as it should be, and there's nothing wrong with it. So let's start with the video, because we've got this really quite interesting development. Again, it's very cloudy, but let's just
you can edit the notes
let's just hear
any
it.
audio sample. Let me show you how it works with this sample. First, you add the plugin to an empty MIDI track. Then you drag your audio sample into the plugin. Once it's done processing, you will see a MIDI transcription of your audio sample. Now all that's left to do is to drag that MIDI transcription into the same MIDI track that the plugin is on. If you play the result, it should sound the same as the original audio sample. Now we can start editing all the notes in the piano roll. The Samplab plugin will then apply these changes to the audio sample in real time.
Oh, I'm off. We've seen this before in a number of other technologies, Melodyne DNA, of course, being the first to do it. But this is from these guys called Samplab. If I bring the screen up, it's essentially, I would play you these demos, but I haven't figured out how to route the audio from my browser into the instance. So the idea is, as was instructed in the video, it's connected to the cloud. So you need to be connected to the internet. It works that way. I guess it fires it up to a super duper instance, sorts it out, brings it down, and then turns it into something that you can then use to rejig your audio. And we, like I say, Melodyne DNA does it. I mean, it's, Melodyne DNA, you can buy ARA versions and more affordable versions, but I doubt this has the same level of complexity. But for free, that ain't bad, is it? I'm going to come for you, Tom, because you're a plugin developer, so I don't know whether or not this is good news or bad news.
No, it's great. It's really, really good. And I think we'll probably see more of this in future. Obviously, it's not real time because you're dragging stuff off into the cloud, but it gets more and more real time in that, when I know a couple of people who are developing cloud-based sample library type stuff with AI kind of thinking about what you might load next. So rather than going and saying, right, I now need this piano, and you wait while it downloads, it goes, well, these are the last most used things. And normally if you're going on this bass sound, I'll begin to download stuff that I think you might be loading next. And therefore it reduces the latency, which is quite clever. So I see more and more of this. It always makes me wonder, because we've got online mastering services where you can upload your thing and you get it back. I've often wondered whether someone sitting at the other end with a copy of Ozone and a couple of scripts that are just kind of sticking it through Ozone and squirting it back. And this is neat because a bit like Loop Cloud, for example, it's interfacing with a VST or an AU or whatever, just a plugin that's sitting there and going, okay, I'm going to squirt this off and squirt it back. What it's doing is, well, I guess it's not revolutionary because stuff does it, but actually it's revolutionary in terms of the fact that it's much, much cheaper, because the Melodyne version that does this kind of stuff is the top one, or the one, it's definitely a couple of levels up in financial cost and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think of the logistics and the commercial aspect of doing this. I guess you could write a plugin that does this on a local machine. It might require quite a lot of heavy lifting in order at the moment. And the beautiful thing about this is you can make tweaks to it all the time without having to be people to do re-downloads and stuff. And once you've got this installed on people's machines, you can then really easily add other functionality to it. And for something that isn't a real-time approach, so I'm thinking of stuff like Melodyne, where you normally go, okay, I want this auto tune to be analyzed, and then I'm going to do stuff with it. There's really no difference between kind of saving it locally and saving it offline. I mean, I guess some people will be a bit concerned about sending their lead vocals out onto the cloud. Ideally, everything would be local. Clearly, you've got to have an internet connection. I know people whose music computers kind of to stay offline just for, to remove resources. But no, it's a good thing. And I think it's a pretty young team of a couple of people doing it. So full marks to them if it is that, just good luck to you guys, because they've raised a nice amount of profile to it. A few people have shown this to me. It's a good old thing. And also I did get completely lambasted by a guy, any excuse to say this little story, but one of the guys saw a video I did about Incinerator, where I'd said, it's my real incinerator in the corner over there. And he was like, you are an idiot. You're a snake oil salesman. It's not going anywhere near your incinerator. It's not even going out over the internet. This whole weird thing about he really thought that my plugin was sending the audio to my studio into my incinerator and then back again, which is logistically just not possible.
Not viable.
But this kind of, and I was saying, well, I could probably, I could fill a whole space with lots of incinerators, but then I'd have to have a team of people on a patch, but all this kind of stupidity. But yes, this kind of thing is perfect. And I'm sure we're going to see more of it as things go on. Obviously, they're also getting a lot of data to work with about how this thing should work. And probably that's the key.
But I will say, look, I mean, here I'm just going to hit download, and it just does it. There's no sign.
Brilliant.
I mean, there may be a sign up in it. I know. What do you think, Rich? I mean, I know you have used Melodyne. I mean, anybody in the pro audio business uses Melodyne these days, but for a variety of different reasons. It's not necessarily to fix dodgy takes. It's so useful for many things. But this is an interesting idea. You muted. Wasn't just me.
Take a drink.
Yeah.
It's certainly a bargain to be able to do this in the way that you can. And I think the workflow they've created is pretty intuitive and easy. I will assume that because they haven't said anything, that the only thing you can really do with this thing is just pitches and chop notes and move them. But I didn't see any provisions.
You can change timing. You can split notes and have them so you can change timing as well.
Right, I saw that, but amplitude tools, tools that control the.
Right.
If you were to put a vocal up there, for example, in other words, Melodyne seems, at least on first blush, to be considerably more fully featured. But then again, as Dom correctly points out, it's fairly expensive. I mean, it's hundreds of dollars, pounds, euros. It's the ones that do this. But I've been doing this for a long time, and it came in incredibly handy. Like shortly after I got it, it was like, I want to change the chords in that section, and I was able to like go into this recording, which was a lot of tracks of rhythm players, and make those chords what he wanted them to be, and it's totally undetectable in the recordings. So it's a useful thing to be able to do. It's cool that they make it easy to do and inexpensive to do. Was it free or was it cheap? I don't remember.
It's free.
Not much. It's free. Okay, well there you go. It doesn't get much cheaper than that, and I applaud them. It's cool. And again, as Dom said, full marks to those young people who came up with a way of doing this virtually. And I don't care about putting my files up for processing. I guess.
I think it's all HTTPS. One thing, I mean, this does raise a bigger question, which is, I've seen this at various shows. In fact, I was looking back at a video that was shot at one of the last physical shows we were at, and it was a way of controlling hardware audio with kind of, I forget the name of the company. So you could get to the processors, you could get to the pots, you could change parameters, and that meant you could send them audio files and then process it as you want. And in some ways, because of the expense of some of the more esoteric and highly valuable studio processing, I mean, then we might be getting close to this notion of, I've got a big room full of gear that I only use from 9 till 3. For the rest of the time, maybe I should just, I'll stick an interface on it. I can rent my whatever it may, my Fairchild, my original 1930s Fairchild, out to somebody, and they can just pour audio through it and take it home and pay by the hour. So I wonder if that's even viable. I mean, you must have seen some of this stuff because you've been to AES. I mean, it's been a thing, or certainly tried to be a thing for ages, Rich, hasn't it? I just don't know if anyone's actually pulled it off, but we might be getting there.
You're talking about with respect to the cloud basis of this, or the
not the cloud basis, but say for instance, there's an interface that allows me to send audio through your, whatever. You've got something nice in your studio. All you have to do is be connected to the internet with some kind of, and you just go, well, between these hours, you can pipe audio through my thing, record it, and take it home. And that gets paid for by some mechanism. And there are instances where that's been happening. I mean, it's sort of happening in kind of, you get with mastering where you're working remotely. But the ability to just kind of go, let's say, using something like Listen To, pipe your stuff through the DAW and select the outputs, and then it's going to the Fairchild, and then you record in the return, and you have the file back to yourself remotely, and somebody pays you £2 or a £5 or whatever it may be. That's what I was trying to get at, I think.
Okay, well, two things come to mind. First of all, the first thing I remember that did this was a silo, where you could book time and send your thing into the silo and record reverb. And the other thing is, for the amount of, I don't know, trouble, the trouble to romance ratio in this tells me to just put the damn plug-in on the track and use the plug-in, and nobody's going to care or know or give a damn. Or, that's just how it goes for me. And if you had a Fairchild sitting there and I needed to use a Fairchild, first of all, I wouldn't need to use it between 12:30 and 12:45. I'd need to use it. And second of all, it's just not. There's 100 ways that could go wrong, and there's only maybe a dozen that my plugin will. So that's how I look at life.
That's true. That's fair enough. I just thought it was worth bringing up because Dom, I just happened to see something along those lines on a video that I was skimming past from our own archive, and I thought, okay,
I was just googling, I was trying to find the name of the place that they were inundating with mails where they had exactly that, and they'd spent money on a web interface to control their stuff. So it was exactly as you described, and maybe they're not around anymore. So you could get the Fairchild and you could rent space on it, and you could just use it and control it. So they didn't need to be in the studio, and Rich is 100% right. I can see kind of like, wouldn't it be great if I ran this bass line through a Fairchild? Because, or the whole mix or something. But it has to be so easy. So making it as easy to use as a plugin, and one step towards that is what these guys have done by making a plugin that you almost don't know it's connected in the back end. It's definitely a step forward. But starting the clock as you're on it, and obviously only one person can use it at a time for that kind of stuff, and that's the issue. It's otherwise I'd have me.
Well, maybe okay. What about reamping or remiking through like Rich was saying about through a very specific space? So I would like to feed but I mean, I suppose the thing is most of this stuff is now happening extremely effectively through impulse responses and modeling and all that stuff. I suppose.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, it's always nice to have the real thing, and I'm sure the engineers would prefer to use a Fairchild than they would the Fairchild plugin. It's the barrier to entry, isn't it? It's the it sounds great. It's too much hassle. I don't need to think about this. But if a huge vacuous space or that could be quite interesting, or something which evolves rather than a static thing that can't be impulse responsed. And impulse responses only work with sound that occurs after the impulse, so that you can't impulse response distortion, for example, and you can't impulse response chorus particularly well. Anyway, it has to be the sound of the room. So if you find somewhere that's constantly evolving, I suppose that might be worthwhile. I can't think of an example, but I'm sure someone will think of it and sell it as an NFT or something shortly, and buy the NFT version or something.
Yeah. Rich, I could see you wanted to come in there.
Well, apart from the ambient discussion, which was kind of born of my example of the silo, there's a McDSP product that's rather expensive. It's called APB. It's Analog Processing Box, and it allows you to run software controlled analog circuitry live in your studio, recallable, and they have a tremendous sounding suite of plugins, some of which sound every bit as good as the Fairchild you probably rented or whatever. And it doesn't have anything to do with the remote cloud thing. It actually puts the thing in your studio, and it's analog circuitry that is configurable via software to run various functions that we do all the time. And it actually sort of replaces analog hardware, but it's much more versatile because you can use it for a range of things. So I just wanted to bring that in, even though it doesn't have anything to do with cloud-based remote servicing. It does bring an analog processing box into your studio and allow you to use it in various different ways, up to and including mixers and compressors and all kinds of different things that they do with it.
Yeah. I think that's working out.
It's a cool
for them,
product.
It's a very ambitious thing.
Yeah.
I should probably just have a quick word from our friends over. Yes. Let's just run that. This is the Cobalt 8, which is a very beautiful blue thing. We've got 8-voice extended virtual analog synth, innovative oscillator with way more than 34 algorithms. I must update my notes on the new operating system update. Morphable 4-pole ladder filter, 29 endless encoders for real-time control, internal sequencer and arpeggiator, MPE support for expression, Modal app for Mac, Windows, iOS, Android and VST3AU. Check out bit.ly/get_modal to find out more about their stuff, and we thank them for their support. Okay, well let's get on to another topic then. Let's see. I've got minimum. I think we'll go for who's got enough pianos. This was interesting. So this is the Soundiron piano. I'm not sure what it's modelled on. It does sound particularly lovely, but the idea is really that it's a sort of 1950s style piano, which is quite muted, and frequency range is quite narrow, but it has a real vibe to it, and they've obviously just done a lot of this. Isn't actually that. I spent $29 till the end of the month. I think that's probably.
Today's walkthrough, we're going to be checking out the brand new Delphi Piano Volume 1, Autumn 1958. This instrument captures the rich, muddy, and fuzzed out flavor of late 50s jazz, blues, and big band piano. However, this piano works equally as well in different types of styles like ambient, lo-fi, hip-hop, post-rock, contemporary
Yeah, I mean, it's got a ton of examples there, and there's some really there's some lovely ambient patches in there. I mean, the piano is a beautiful instrument to just play with sonically, as we know. I'll come to you, Rich, because I know you've actually got a piano, a real piano that is probably capable. It might even be 1950s or thereabouts. I do not know. Maybe not.
1914, 6-foot Steinway O downstairs that I grew up playing as a kid and now has found its way back to me. Thank God. So as to this sample set, it's charming. It's cool. It's unique. It's not the perfect piano that everybody's been trying to make for the last 20 years. It's completely something other than that. The implication that jazz records were made on these things other than live recordings in clubs of out-of-tune pianos is a bit extreme, but I'll give him a pass on that because he's just trying to make it seem like it was useful for something, and it is, but it's not useful for that. It's a nice atmospheric thing, and they've done a lot of nice sound design with it, and it's a pretty cool, for $29, how can you argue? But it's not. I like its trend towards using pianos towards making pianos that aren't the perfect giant grand. I really do. I quite like that, and I've even liked some of the unique pianos that various companies, particularly that in my mind Native Instruments, have done, like the 12-foot upright and the una corda stuff, and the thing where they have single strings on every key rather than 3s and 2s. And it has very unique. I like unique pianos, and I like this piano. So for $29, sure, it's a no-brainer.
It certainly is. The only thing I will say, and I noticed this, it does require, as far as I can tell, the full version of Contact, which is a bit of a downer for some people who maybe don't own that. So that's a shame. But you often find that with Contact libraries, that there's a certain, once you reach a certain threshold, because they will pay, the manufacturer has to pay quite a lot to get their stuff baked as a Contact player version. It's quite a heavy license, I believe. So maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, I don't know how much you have to pay UVI to use their player, but I would imagine it might be cheaper and worth investigating, because my favourite plug-in piano is still the Ravenscroft UVI one, which I did a kind of shootout on those. It's nowhere near as good as a real piano, but it is lovely. And I do like I think that he who dies with the most pianos probably wins. I mean, you can never have enough pianos, really. But equally, just like Rich, I do love the kind of esoteric stuff. I was just trying to think of that. I don't want to run Logic to check it because it might kill my connection. But there was one which had some kind of granular effects on it.
Was it Nils? The Nils?
Yes,
from
yes, exactly
piano.
That one. Yeah. That's wonderful in terms of effects and stuff. This one sounds really nice for lo-fi stuff and kind of slightly wonky beats, and it's not. I don't think pianos sounded like that in the 1950s. I think recordings of pianos in the 1950s probably sound like that. I got a feeling that, pianos probably sounded pretty cool in the 1950s, but it's very reminiscent of the kind of Ivan Novello sitting in the corner singing his latest song to the ladies after dinner kind of sound. But yeah, it's lovely. It's calming and
it's more like that's what the mics sounded like in 1950, not the piano.
Exactly. And
right?
it's like crackle because it's degraded slightly. I'm sure it would be how weird would it be if you went to a concert and with a real piano in the corner and it actually sounded like it was crackly on a bad recording. Anyway, so I digress. I'm completely off the course of Logic there, but I really like the sound of it. I completely agree with Rich. It's really cheap, and I'm sure it has a real place. It sounds like it could sit really nicely within tracks. And I love the sound of piano, so I'm going to grab that one, I think.
Well, it's interesting that we talked. This kind of links in with the previous topic, actually, because I saw Charles Chicky Reeves. I went to see him because I was in London at the weekend, and I popped by his crib because I'd never been there, and we were continuing the conversation about the pianos because he had a Steinway, a New York Steinway, but he's got one of those Yamaha midified pianos, and so sometimes when he needs a piano recording, he sends the person who's living in the space where his piano is the MIDI file, He mics it up, records it nicely, and sends it back because he gets the performance just right, and then he just gets the recording of the piano in the space with the mics. Which
That
there
is
was
a
that Moog
service.
piano bar. There was the Moog piano bar, which was a retrofitting thing as well, which
Yes.
may or may not be. I mean, that might be something. That sort of rings a little bit of a sparkle of that might work. Send me a MIDI file, I'll send you a
Definitely.
recording back, and then you just
Totally.
dial up the velocities.
Absolutely, 100%. If you could do that and the room and everything, yeah, totally. That makes complete sense. You just have to stick it in a soundproof room.
you just get stems back of all the different mic sets, so you can balance it yourself.
Yeah, completely.
Essentially.
Completely. I ordered one at 3:00 in the
I don't
morning,
know.
and he's doing a test upstairs. And it's like, oh, he's uploaded a MIDI file.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh no, he wanted a house piano bashed out that loud. God, crikey, that's good. On one of those big Yamaha Grands, that's going to be really noisy, isn't it? Yeah. I think I might just put bashed out at 3 p.m. as a possible show title. I wonder if that will fit. Bashed out at 3 a.m. Yeah, 3 a.m. I beg your pardon. I'm going to write that down. Bagged out at 3. I don't know. It's nice though. If you check them out, it's the Soundiron collection, and it's just they do. If you listen to that whole video, it gets really. There's some really nice stuff later on, which is much more my kind of thing. Less traditional piano, and much more sort of interesting ambient stuff. Which as we know, it's all good that we can have all of it really. Okay, right. Let's see how we're doing for time. Done that one. That was titled "Who's got enough pianos." Oh yeah, we are good for time. That's the thing. I get so fired up when I'm doing this cloud thing, and also it's summer, so there's a little bit less news. That time really does fly past. So I do beg your pardon. This last week was a little slower, shorter. Anyway, let's see. Maybe what I'll do is, what shall we have? Shall we go for the? Let's go for Techmoan. This is another great video from Techmoan, who's got a great.
Like a lot of people nowadays, I've digitized all my CDs,
Channel.
put them into iTunes, and I can play them around the house using a Sonos system. But that doesn't mean that I don't have an appreciation for older music technology as well. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking at a couple of formats that didn't quite take off. We've got the Philips DCC, that's the digital compact cassette. And we've also got the Sony L cassette. We'll start off looking at that one first.
This is typically a very deep, nerdy look at those things, and he's got all of these machines that still run. And the part of me is this sort of like, why on earth would you want to? But I remember DCC. I don't remember El cassette at all. I just want to quickly. Is that a sticker or a chat? I can't tell. Who was that? What is that? Wagyu? That's very kind. Oh no, Adamski. Thank you very much for your support. Lovely. It's a lovely sort of quaint, slightly boffiny, strange dude that just looks deep at these things. But there was really, because these formats have been going. The L cassette looked really interesting to me. I mean, it was about it was about that big. Looks just like a cassette, only much bigger. So I'm not quite sure how useful it is in that sense. But I suppose, as people who've been working in studios, we back then it was like, well, what do we need to be able to provide formats on? Some of these formats were acceptable for maybe mastering. Some of them would needed to have been post-mastering to be distributed on that. So you finish your mix, you send it to the master, they would then have to do a special version for L cassette or DCC that maybe had a different bias or whatever the things that you have to do. So I guess we might be familiar with them. Rich, I remember you said that you used to work servicing Nakamichis back in the day, so maybe you've got a fond or interest or a passing interest in some of these formats, or maybe not, I don't know.
Well, I've got other related experience as well, but to the specific ones that he chose for this video, I joke occasionally on the podcast about the doorstops of the Future Hall of Fame. And most of these were relegated to the doorstops of the Future Hall of Fame on the day of conception, because this was a process of the industry trying to sort out what we could use what we could use in digital as a distribution medium. And so to the extent that the L cassette, literally, they never, according to the gentleman in the video, ever sold a title, a pre-recorded title in L cassette format. So if you have an L cassette player, all you're doing is recording 1 or 2 tracks of digital audio at some God knows what sample rate through Lord knows what kinds of converters. Because when CDs first hit, which was later than this, they didn't sound that good yet either. So there's romance about L cassette, but it was a evolutionary product along the way to trying to figure out what kind of digital distribution medium they could use, which eventually settled on CD at the time. And the other thing he had was an analog tape format that was running at double speed and twice the width of cassette, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember.
Was that the L cassette or was that the DCC? The DCC was the digital compact.
Oh, all right. The L cassette ran at double speed then.
Yeah.
Okay, so these were tape attempts at digital, and the closest anybody ever gotten to make anything viable as a tape storage digital format was DAT, obviously, which was a staple in every recording studio that any of us worked in back in the day. And that was the first sort of successful product that was able to use tape as a reliable storage mechanism for digital data. Very soon after they went to CD, and then the rest was history, as they say. As far as my relevant experience, I used to work at a tape mastering house working on mastering 8-track cartridges. So
wow.
I would be. What was remarkable about that process was that as a person who is making like practically minimum wage is being handed a finished master of some gigantic artist's album and being told to resequence it at his whim to fit 4 different stereo tracks across a minimum amount of actual tape stock so that the things don't cost a fortune to manufacture, because the whole thing about 8-track is it runs in a loop and it's running 4 simultaneous stereo feeds across a piece of 1/4-inch tape that is running at 7.5 IPS, or maybe it's 3 and 3/4 IPS. And I would be, so that was stunning to me that a guy like, Peter Gabriel or Bruce Springsteen's album would show up in my room and I would be asked to resequence this thing. Like to the complete, the artist has no aspect of this process is controlled by the artist at all. That amazed me, and I quite enjoyed the job. By the way, it was fun and it was interesting, and I think I'm horrified by that particular fact of it. But it's a very, for another day, it's a pretty, maybe over a beer, it's a pretty interesting process how this all gets done. So even before I was servicing Nakamichi tape decks, I was doing stuff like this, which is almost more like what they're talking about because it has to do with an actual physical format that people tried to market as a consumer, distributable consumer product. And the things that he described didn't get anywhere near that stage, unfortunately. I mean, I guess fortunately, because we ended up with stuff that's better. Okay,
yeah, I suppose. Well, there were a few that did a run for the money, didn't there? There was mini disc. That was because we used to use mini disc recorders and mini disc play. There was like 8-track mini disc playback things that ran on that were like 4 tracks, but they had a reduced audio bandwidth to stuff. There were things that nearly kind of got there, but just obviously it's down to the manufacturer price. But yeah, I mean the original, the early digital sounded dreadful, didn't it? I don't know. I mean, did you have any exposure to any of these, Dom?
I remember hi-fi video being a format that was better than cassette to master onto if you were using your Porter Studios and stuff like that. The hi-fi video was still analog, but the audio, you had a hi-fi mode on VHS, and that was actually really good quality, and that was a cheap way of mastering just before DAT came along. And I mean, 8 tracks, I know a lot of cars had 8 tracks in them, didn't they? So they almost cracked it. A mini disc was used a lot by, I mean, I remember the BBC were using them for all their reporters and stuff. Like everything would be recorded for broadcast onto mini discs and then set out and stuff for a long time. But no, I think it's always struck me as a super clever, this is a geeky bit, but super clever when to get more information onto these tapes, they did it on video and then they use the same thing on DAT because you've got the speed of the tape going past. There's my camera there. Obviously, if you speed the tape up, it gets better quality. But what they did was they kept the tape at the same speed and they spun the head on a disc. so that the head was literally striping sideways on the tape, and they got much faster effective tape speed by doing that. And that's how videos and DATs would work. And it's such a clever thing for someone to come along and say, well, actually, we don't want to speed the tape up. What we want to do is speed the head up. But DATs were so unreliable. I mean, man,
Yeah,
the drop,
I've
especially
got
when
a
you were
room full
doing
of ones
dumps
that
from
don't work anymore.
yeah, S1000, yeah, exactly. S1000 dumps and S2000 dumps would always kind of lose bits and pieces, but yeah, really worrying. But it was, I mean, it was a complete game changer in terms of being able to master something and hearing back basically the same quality that you put in compared to what everyone had before, basically. So, you know, it was just such a brilliant thing to be able to jump on.
There was wasn't there this, was it Sony F1 that recorded on pneumatic tapes?
Oh yes,
that was
yeah,
something
we
that
could
was
load
used
of
for a while. I
masters on
remember that.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember there was a bunch of that. Yeah, you remember? Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were supposed to be pretty good.
And
That was PCM, wasn't it? Early PCM.
it was. And the rotary head technology that Don refers to, which by the way striped in a diagonal, was also the reason why we had ADATs, which was kind of a revolution in home.
Yeah,
It took the whole home recording thing to a completely different level from what had previously essentially been ported studios and the like. And when the ADAT appeared on a rotary head format, it kind of revolutionized the game. Rotary head machines, that being what they are, if you ever open it up and look at what that thing is doing to the tape in order to wrap it around that head, it's damn near frightening. And it's a wonder that those tapes survived as well as they did, because they're not terribly thick, and they're being manhandled magnificently as compared to just, you know, a flat capstan pinch roller kind of arrangement.
yeah. Scott from Canada in the chat room says he was just transferring F1 tapes from some F1 tapes last summer. Interesting. Sorry, Dom.
Wow. No, I was just going to say the other thing driving the development of new formats was the ability to resell people's catalogs to the public again, obviously. So,
yeah, as
you
it's
bought them on vinyl,
Dolby
you bought them on
Atmos,
CD,
anybody?
you bought them- yeah, exactly. So now streaming is slightly different, but yeah, I mean, people have bought at least 3 or 4 times the same record 3 or 4 times over the vinyl, CD, cassette, streaming, you know, whatever it might be. So there's obviously a big driver there to come up with better sounding mediums in which to distribute music.
Well, it's no surprise, because Philips, who were one of the major pioneers of new formats, obviously used to have quite extensive record labels ownership. So that makes total sense. I'm just going to pop in with if you're into mastering and you need to you want access to some pretty awesome tools, you should watch this now.
Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
In fact, if you head to iZotope.com/sonictalk, they've changed the landing page, and you can try a monthly subscription for free. So please do try that out. We welcome and appreciate their continued and long-lasting support of the show. They've been very long supporters of ours, and we very much appreciate what they've been doing all this time. Okay, is there another one? Pianos. Oh yeah, this was kind of fun. Now I'm not sure how this is going to play because it was really loud. I'll try it and we'll see if it works. So let's try. So this is Reese's Puffs. This is a really interesting idea. They basically released a bunch of limited edition boxes that go together with an AR app that allow you to create this sort of step recording, 4-track step recording, and it's just such a genius idea. So you have to buy Yeah, you have to buy the Reese. I mean, it's a brilliant piece of marketing. This was from a piece on Peter Kern's Create Digital Music. I'll post the link in the show notes. Hold on, I've got to remember because I'm posting from a PC to a Mac, so I have to do Control V and then Apple V. There we go. There it is. This is a really interesting piece. He interviewed the people from, I think they're called an Anomaly Agency, who made this stuff. There's actually also a couple of limited boxes that have physical controls, but the whole thing's linked to your phone, and you just sort of place serial on the grids and create tracks. So I just think what a brilliant use of AR marketing to market to well, I suppose children ultimately, but I quite fancy this. It's a very stylish and mod. I could see that this made you chuckle, Dom, and this is, I mean, because we're being told, aren't we? We're being told continuously that AR is going to be the next big thing. This is augmented reality, whereby
It's got there
either
now.
your headset or your glasses. Yeah, this is it. Are we there now?
It's arrived.
Know.
It's arrived. Yeah. I think this is the best use of stuff. I mean, just brilliant, and it's educational as well. Building drums on a grid like that, and you hold your phone over it, and the phone plays it, having decoded the grid. It's just absolutely wonderful. I had the pleasure of recording a voiceover with the Honey Monster once. They were desperately worried. I think I might have said this before. Desperately worried that they were reducing the abilities of being able to market to children, although they wouldn't kind of say that out loud. So they were trying to come up with ways in which they could market across the board. And I mean, I'd buy this now just because it's just an epic idea. But in terms of just getting something across the line and getting it in front of people, I mean, I think this happened a while ago now because it's been floating around for a little bit, and they must have had more publicity out of this than anything else ever, I'm sure. I mean, Reese's Puffs is not a UK.
Did he show up in? I have to go back to your recording. Did he show up like dressed like this?
No, I was really disappointed.
As
He's a lovely guy, but he's quite small, and he was a little bit round. I mean, just a lovely guy. But he said at the end, I recorded this thing, and they were doing voiceovers and tests and stuff in the studio that I had, and I was chatting to him afterwards, and I said, "Yeah, how you doing?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm off out tonight." So I said, "Oh yeah, what you up to?" And he said, "Oh, I'm going to see Terry," and it was as if I should know who Terry was. So I was thinking, I don't even know a Terry. I wonder who he's talking. He goes, I said, "Well, Terry, here we go. Terry the Tiger. We're all going off out for a beer tonight. So you've got the Honey Monster." And he's Tony the Tiger, isn't it? Not Terry the Tiger. Yeah,
Tony the Tiger. Frosties, yeah,
from
Frosties.
Frosties, going out for a beer in the evening to catch up on all things kind of cereal related. Do
you think they met up with Snap, Crackle and Pop as well?
Exactly.
I reckon Pop was a real live wire, right?
It was absolutely, but it was the way I should have known. He expected me, Tony the Tiger, yeah, I'm sure you will get together. What a world to live in. But yeah, he was the most unassuming Honey Monster ever. It was one of those guys whose voice doesn't match the person. You know what I mean? When they open their mouth and this great comes out.
I'm just writing down, tell them about the Honey Mummy as a potential title. I don't know if it was a US thing or whether it made it to the States. Obviously, we don't condone the advertising of sugary snacks to children. It's a very passé thing. But I don't know, Rich. There's something about this that doesn't kind of work for me because I'm just trying to find this. Surely it's the wrong cereal because they're like round and they'll roll about.
Well, I was thinking maybe some
Fruity Loops or something.
Fruit Loops Eurorack is what's probably coming next.
Cheerios.
Captain Crunch filter modules and Count Chocula voltage routers and God knows what else. No, it made me laugh and it looks like fun. And I started to go after trying it out, but then I didn't have the cereal in the house, so I couldn't do that. It's pretty clever. I would love to have been in the boardroom when the guy walked in with this idea. That must have been someday
with the pitch
in the boardroom. Yeah,
I will, but I've never seen a augmented AR. Sorry, kind of get my terminology. I've never seen it. I mean, I suppose that's the thing that's kind of quite interesting to me. I would love to see how that works because I mean, I suppose the closest we've come to mass consumption was it Pokemon Go where you would go to places and things would be overlaid. I never tried that. I mean, I'm just not really a gamer, but I mean, there are instances where this would be, and we've seen it sort of. There've been some synths that are more VR than AR, but I can kind of see that this probably has has legs, and it will ultimately be our gradual turning into sort of having the Ethernet jack on the back of the head kind of thing. You know, I would say. I don't know. Have you experienced any AR stuff? Sorry,
I do hope so. So carry on, Rich.
I really like the sound of the wheat checks myself. I find the wheat checks sound particularly good.
Yeah, I'll bet they do. But it's, I suppose once we see a brilliant example of this, then it's going to be everywhere, isn't it? And I mean, there are rumours that this is going to be sort of Apple's next point of focus. I mean, if you discount the car and everything else they're supposed to be doing, but once somebody like that gets behind it, it's going to be...
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a few things going on at the moment. I mean, the AR typically was point the camera at something, camera recognizes something and projects something on top of it. So the Pokemon Go thing would be, point it at the table, it would spot the table. It wouldn't care what's on the table in the way that this does, which is why this is clever. It would just go, oh, here's a table, now I'm going to put a cuddly character on there, and you can interact with it as if there's a character standing in front of you, almost like a virtual hologram of something in front of you. Whereas this is looking for a specific pattern like the grid and going, okay, now I can work out where all the bits are, and I'm now going to do something completely, it's almost just recognition, just like photo recognition. And it's such a clever thing. I haven't got a Reese's box packet like that, so I don't know what happens if you start moving them around or whatever, or if you do a kind of live jam with one. I mean, that could be quite interesting. But there's a few things like that now
yeah,
or multiple boxes next to each other with different patterns.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
or,
that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. Yeah, that's what they were actually doing in that.
Because the latency is nothing, right? Because you're not sending any audio. So I could jam with you with our synced virtual reality audio. Yeah, just brilliant.
Yeah.
But there's,
I mean, as we've seen, I mean, iOS, the music drove the whole apps thing, and so maybe that's going to drive the whole AR thing as well.
Has Tim Exile seen this?
Well, it's right
Probably,
up that kind of street, isn't it? Yeah. And there's the tap. I can't think what the technology is called now, so someone in the chat might understand what I'm talking about. But a few things now where you can get like business cards that you tap on the back of a phone, and it does a small low-range Bluetooth kind of, it can open a link or anything. It's a bit like a tapping QR code and that kind of stuff. So it'd be quite interesting to have drum kits made of those kind of things and just use that technology to be able to hit things and call sounds remotely, or in a similar way that you're operating that stuff in the cloud. It's just another interface. However, all of that is kind of complicated and it lacks that real killer app. And I think this cereal box is just the killer app. I think it's over, isn't it? It's all over.
Yeah. Interesting. I just want to say quickly, thank you, David, for another good episode this week. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I did actually. There's the Avatar thing. Have you heard this? ABBA's virtual reunion show where they're going to be in Avatar. I think it's just it's almost worth doing just so they can use the name Avatar. Avatar is almost worth trademarking just because it's so perfect. So I would guess this will have some sort of AR aspect to it, or maybe it'll just be projections. I don't know. That's a bit off topic, I suppose. But hey, what the hell? I'm rambling. That's not a problem. I'm also rambling because I think we might actually have we've actually run out of topics. Oh well, let's be our occasional series of what have you discovered recently, workflow or plug-in use of some gear perhaps that has appealed to you in recent times. I can start with you, Rich. I mean, I guess you've been on the road a bunch, so I don't know how much time you've had to focus on things that maybe like, hey, this is a cool new workflow method or a new thing that you've discovered. Have you got anything that you want to care to throw into the ring?
You mean besides Incinerator?
Besides Incinerator. I love you. 10 points.
Love you too, Tom. I just recently got. I've been kind of keen to, in addition to our dear friend Dom, support the Brainworx bunch Plugin Alliance because of this horrible flooding that they had that sort of took down a tremendous percentage of their business, and they've been also very generous about sending out sale coupons. So just yesterday I purchased from them something called Black Box, which is another Mojo plugin, not unlike Incinerator, This one's got fake tubes
There we
on
go.
it, which Incinerator doesn't have. But it sets up a tube kind of saturation processing environment. And I've been sort of more into my what I call Mojo plugins, which are things that are not specifically EQs or compressors that affect your sound in some cool and positive way, or negative way, if that's what you prefer. So this is in the realm of Mojo plugins to me. I picked up their black box, which is a tube simulation, and it's nice. It's fun. I haven't. I've stuck it on some of the same lead sounds that I've got Incinerator on, and it sounds great running through Incinerator. But I'm pretty sure it sounds really good on its own as well. And I'm looking forward to finding ways to use these things, because I'm about to embark on a pretty significant mix project for something that's very close to my heart, for an artist who unfortunately we lost this year. So I'm looking forward to giving these things all a good workout while I'm finishing that project.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Rich. Dom, how about yourself?
A couple of things on this side. Reese's Pieces have reached $20 on eBay for a limited edition box. Just checking on that. Chris Cynthian from the lovely ProSynth Network podcast explained a way of resorting your Logic plugins into kind of favorites and stuff, which has been a bit of a game changer, because at the moment on Logic, when you open them up, you go to plugins. External.
Third party is always at the bottom, isn't it? Yeah,
it's right at the bottom, and it's listed by manufacturer and all the rest of it. And actually, it's really simple. I didn't realize how simple it was to drag them around and go, okay, well, I'm going to put these in reverbs, and I'm going to have, so you could have a favorites with your favorite reverbs and stuff, and then just the Incinerator right at the top, obviously. But it's really easy to change it, which is just real time saver, which had never even occurred to me. So that's worth a look. And I'm still in love with this thing at the moment. It's just so much fun. This is SP404. SP404. It's the original one, which has some different effects. It's not as powerful as the later one, so it's a really wonky kind of lo-fi box, and it's just a lot of fun.
It's the hip hop machine, isn't it? Lots of people.
It is, and lo-fi as well. Are sort of putting about stuff. And being the original one as well, it's got some effects on there which didn't make it through, sadly. So I'm not sure if they're any better than the later ones, but it's achieved a kind of immortality with you got to have the vinyl sim off the original one and stuff like that. So it's been a really good fun, and that's what made me quite like the piano we talked about earlier, because it just sounds a bit like something you'd come up with on the 404.
Okay, so low vibe. That's interesting. Thanks, Wagyu, for a little contribution to the drinks fund, which we will be... actually, I only had a cup of tea at Charles. He doesn't drink, so I'll have to figure out a way to buy him something lovely from the fund of all of these super stickers and chats. Thank you very much. What's for me, most of my stuff recently has been... playing around with there's something called Bitfocus Companion, which if you have a Stream Deck, it's like a little server that sits. Let me see if I can load up Bitfocus Companion. I'll just do a search. It's like a little server that you can load up, and you can customize to a very great degree your Stream Deck. But it has modules. So, for instance, I could use it to control this show. It will control vMix. It will control all kinds of stuff, and also give you feedback to buttons. You can have all sorts of different states, and you're able to create these sort of really complex Stream Deck setups and share them. Because if you have a Stream Deck and you go, I've got this really cool setup, you can't really share it with anybody else, because all the buttons on Stream Decks, if you use their own app, have their own unique identifiers. Whereas this way just takes the numbers and the pages and does it that way. So if you created a bit, let me see if I can find it here. It's free at the moment. Yes, I agree. Let's have a look. I'll see if I can find some pages and stuff. Is there any information on it? I'm trying to see where it is. But it's all web-based. And you can run an emulator. You don't even need to have a Stream Deck, because what you could do is create this incredibly complicated, multi-page Stream Deck that could be an XL or a small one. Many people who are in music production know Stream Decks are very useful for just triggering all kinds of events. But so you can create this thing, program it all up, and then run it as an emulator in a web browser, which is then controlled by the QWERTY keys on your keyboard. So you actually kind of get access to all of this really brilliant programmability. Let me just paste the link in there. I think it's, you might find that it does something that really floats your boat. Oops, that's not the one. It's Control C and then Apple V, because I'm doing it between machines.
What's it called?
That's not it either. Bitfocus Companion. Control C, right? I'm just going to try and see if I can get this, because I'm having trouble.
We're talking
with my
about
cut and
Stream
paste.
Deck by Elgato.
Yeah, the Stream Deck by Elgato, but it's not by them. It's a third-party piece of software which is made by Bitfocus, and what it does is just allow you to program the whole the interface and and what it'll do, because it'll fire off things like, it'll fire off commands, OSC commands, it'll fire off all kinds of stuff. So you can use it for some really very powerful things. So for instance, and there's sort of macros, so you can pile up commands, but also you could say, well, when I press this button, also activate this other button that's on another page of my of my Stream Deck configuration. It's really clever, actually, and I've just discovered it. And it means that you can share these configurations with each other as well. I mean, it doesn't have the same. Yeah. Anyway,
And
that's
you
my
don't
top
need a
tip. I
Stream
think I
Deck.
pasted it. And you
You
don't
don't
need
actually need a Stream
Yeah.
Deck if you don't have
No.
one. So that's really neat if you want to have like a interface
is
for live streaming or something. Very good.
Very neat, yeah. And it'll run on a Raspberry Pi as well, apparently. There's also, you just plug it into a Pi and it'll just run as a little server on a Pi, or you can plug it into your computer. I've got it running on here, on this computer, because in case my MIDI didn't work, which has been absolutely faultless over RTP MIDI, I had an emulation of roughly the stuff I need to do to run the show. I don't think I can actually... can I do that? I wonder if there's a way I don't think there's actually a way for me to oh, there probably is. Hold on a minute, I'm going to see if I can show it. This will be exciting. Let's see. So now I go to my vMix call and I share my screen.
I'll just say goodbye now before we
Yeah, no, hold on, this
disappear.
this could work. Here we go. Share. So this is it, and that's it there. So I'm just going to come back because my camera's gone. So that means that, so now this is kind of interesting. So this is running it in my web browser on my computer. So if I now, so let's change another shot. So if I change that shot, this will be a bit meta. So you'll see me changing shots via my web browser. And this is changing the instances in vMix because I've got it set up to do that thing. Right. Anyway, so now I've got to try and get back to my face somehow. Let's go back to my camera.
Buttons.
Okay. Stop sharing,
One of those
back to my
virtual
camera.
buttons.
Let's see. Is that going to come back? Toggle full screen. I don't know if... Oh, it doesn't seem to come back. Okay, I'll have to
Oh, I said, here he comes.
There we go. So that's my top tip. Well worth. A lot of the streaming professionals use it because it means they can send. Most people who are doing this cloud production have one of these Stream XLs, and you can just send them a text file to load in, and it'll be the configuration for whatever the show that you need to switch on the day. It's very, very clever stuff. Anyway. So I guess that I got us there. I got us to the end of, it's past 5 o'clock. We've done a whole hour and everything. But guys, thank you so much for joining us, Rich. It's been a pleasure to have you. I'm so glad you had an enjoyable experience gigging again with our friends over here. I'm sorry I couldn't get to see it. It's a real shame. Maybe next time. But have a great tour for the rest of your tour in a couple of weeks, and your project as well. Look forward to seeing the fruits of your labours, or hearing them even.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see Dom. I haven't seen him in a long time, and hope to see you both in person soon.
And Dom Hawkin as well. Thank you very much. You've got a show on Sunday. Have you got a guest lined up, or are you?
Yeah, super secret at the moment, but I think we're set up. I never plan more than a week in advance, so it's not quite secret. It's just not confirmed. But yeah, there'll always be someone there. There'll always be someone around. And I'm not sure if you got in touch with Charlie Klauser, but I know he
not yet.
he was
No,
very keen to
I haven't had a
have
chance.
chat. So no, that's cool.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
He's a good guy. So and thank you, Rich, for your very kind word. Lovely to see you, and your very kind words on the incinerator plugin. Very much appreciated. So yeah, big love in today on Sonicstate.
Yes, well, Mr. Wiggly for all your Mr. Wiggly needs, Sunday night stream, and of course the plugins and whatnot. So, it remains for me to just go to our little 4-up. Well, that's my remote shot, which is is no longer active. If you're interested again in how this cloud-based production that actually did work this time works, that'll be on the pre-show, which you can find on our Patreon, which I'll just pop there. Why the hell not? I'll plug. So there we go. Right. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Cheers.